Okay, awesome. All right, perfect. Well, you guys, I am so amazed at how many of you guys are still participating in this challenge. Let me I'm loud. How many of you guys are participating in this challenge still? How awesome is that? I think this is the most that we've ever had make it this far. And if you made it this far, you'll be finishing it all. So that's really exciting. So congratulations for sticking it out. And so who did 2 calls today? I know that I've been monitoring that in the last little bit. I'm going to draw for the Starbucks card. I guess I'll do it in the morning because somebody could be doing calls yet tonight after this is done. So I'll draw in the morning so you guys still have time if you need to get one more call in tonight when we're done. And in the morning, I'll draw for the Starbucks card. So exciting for those of you guys that did 2 calls. I know that Bonnie shared with you that on Thursday night, Dr. Bruce Rippey is going to be our speaker on our Thursday night call. That call, just to kind of remind you of the challenge, I know that you know this, but I'm just going to say it again. Whenever you have a total of 25 shares, 10 of which are 3-way calls, the other 15 can be however you get them. Whenever that is done, then you get the mug, and when you have 4 recruits, you get the t-shirt. So that's really what we're headed for. So Thursday night is going to be a huge opportunity for you to get guests on. I know that Bonnie talked a little bit about how to get guests on. Know that Dr. Bruce has a very, very high closing rate. He has a 90% closing rate. So 90% of the people that hear his presentation close. And so you definitely want to get anyone on the phone, anyone that has any type of questions, any Bill Nye the Science guys, they're perfect. Dr. Bruce is Bill Nye the Science guy. So lines and get people on there on Thursday. Your challenge for tonight, when we're done with the call, I'm going to go ahead and just give this to you, is to update us on where you're at. It's fine. Rock where you're at. I don't care if you've only done 1 call. I want you to rock your 1 call, and I want you to be like, I did 1 freaking awesome call this week. Put that on there. It doesn't matter. I want you to rock where you're at. And so on the wall, I want you to tell me where you're at in the challenge, how many training calls you've done, and how many guests you've had on Zooms or other opportunities. So that's your challenge. Of course, we're just going to continue forward and continue on. Tonight, we're going to talk about overcoming objections. This really links a little bit to follow-up. We covered a little bit about this on the 3-way call, but it really is a separate topic, because it's really important that you understand what objections are. I think that number 1 in overcoming objection is you've got to really get your belief built up in the company and built up in the business. There is an amazing YouTube video. I'll post it on the wall tonight. It's by David Wood. And it's just called Network Marketing Mythbusters. And I'll put it up. It talks a lot about busting the myths of network marketing. So I'd watch that so you're really building your belief. Getting on Thursday night is a huge belief builder. Whenever someone says anything to me about the products in a negative way, I chuckle on the inside in a sense, because I know that they had to pass Dr. Bruce's horrendous screening. And when he talks about it tomorrow night, you're going to understand exactly what I'm saying. So these analyticals will start saying all this stuff. And on the inside, I just chuckle thinking about if only Dr. Bruce were here, that he would just rip that into shreds, maybe mentally, not out loud. But getting on that Thursday night will really help also to build your belief in the product. Even if, well, I know you're going to have guests, but if for some reason you don't, you still want to get yourself on that call on Thursday night. But hold on just a second, you guys. Let me fix the background really quick. So anyway, so that's kind of, you want to really build up your belief, because when someone comes and begins to object, to you or object about the company, you've got to be ready for that. It's not a time for you to be soft. It's not a time for you to be passive. You've got to be really ready for that and expect objections. Now, let's talk about what is an objection. Most of the time, it's coming from one of two places. Either the person objecting is needing validation, so they're needing you to validate them, or the other type of objection really is coming at you mostly as a question. It is the rare person that is coming at you with an objection that is an attitude, if that makes sense. And I think sometimes as an associate, we sometimes feel like it's all a personal attack, or it's all directed at us. But in life, there's two personality types. Well, there's more than two personality types. But when it comes to processing and communication, there's really two personality types. There's a negative processor, where when you give them information, they process everything negatively, think about everything that could go wrong. They think about all the issues, all the problems. Like they're naturally equipped to do that. And then there's the positive processor. The positive processor hears information. They think about everything positive, how it could work, and they process what you're saying positive. A positive processor will think about negative things later on. A negative processor will think of things almost Johnny on the spot. And so sometimes when you're giving information to people, particularly if they're an analytical type or a bit of a negative processor, those objections are coming up in their mind. They're thinking, what ifs? What if this is going to cause this issue or cause that issue? How's it going to go against my medication? They're thinking all of these things, and it's naturally coming up in their mind because that's just how they're equipped. And sometimes we get defensive, but it's not a place for us to get defensive. Most of the time when someone is bringing an objection to you, it is either they need validation or it's a question. They're actually bringing it to you as a question, but they're saying it as a statement. And if they are processing negative, sometimes it will come out negatively. So let's talk about tennis shoes. So if I go to the store and I want to buy a pair of tennis shoes, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are so cute. They're going to look perfect with my yoga pants. I want black and black ones. And I get them. And I get them to the car, and then I think about, oh goodness, are these going to work on the trail run? I hope the soles actually, like the roots don't press through the soles of the shoe, and I think about the things later on. But when I purchased, I was like, everything positive. Whereas if my husband goes shoe shopping, I feel sorry for the sales guy because he's like, well, this sole looks kind of thin. I think the roots might poke through it. I hope that it holds up. I researched these shoes on Google and I saw where some people had some issues with them, and he literally will verbalize those type of things. And that's because we're two types of different personalities in purchasing. And so you've got to know that with objections that most of the time it's questioning. So when my husband is saying that about shoes, he's not like dishing the shoes. He just wants to know, how are these shoes going to work for me? And he needs that sales associate to say, oh no, they're going to work for the tree roots because, or these are the best shoes because. He needs to actually go in and overcome what my husband's saying. If at any point that sales associate takes it personally or starts acting weird, my husband won't purchase because everything that he's saying literally is just a question because he is analytical. He is a little bit of it's like a gift. He can think of every single thing that could possibly go wrong. Me, on the other hand, I don't do that. And so typically that's what objections are, people just trying to talk things through with you. And so as an associate, you have to be really aware of that. In order to learn how to answer those types of questions that are going to come from that personality type or that analytical or those objections that are coming up, you simply just need training calls, listen to Dr. Bruce's Zoom on Thursday night. That's going to give you tons of information. Go back and listen to Dr. CB's. Just submerge yourself into the company videos and that type of thing to really gather information. Now, with all that being said, the things that are going to be puked out on you are going to be things like, wow, I've never had a shake that's filled me up before. This sounds an awful lot like Advocare. They might say something like, well, that's kind of expensive. Well, I got some stuff from Amazon for way cheaper than that. They might say, oh, cleanse. That just kills the bacteria, the good bacteria and the bad bacteria in your body. So they're saying all this stuff, and you guys can probably feel that energy even as I say it. Sometimes it's like nails on a chalkboard, right? When they object and they're saying all that stuff to you. But think about it as when they're saying it, it's questions. So when they go, oh yeah, that cleanse, it takes away the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. What they're really saying to you is, does your cleanse take away the good bacteria or the bad bacteria? But they're processing that in such a way that it's coming off so harshly. And so you have to be prepared how to answer that statement. Or other things that they'll say is, let me look here, I wrote down, it's kind of expensive. Christmas is coming up. Or they might say, I've never had a shake that works for me. Shakes just aren't filling. Shakes aren't real food. They might say something like, okay, from my understanding, I looked online and it's not FDA approved. Now let's think about that statement. I know we've heard that. I've looked online and it's not FDA approved. I think sometimes initially that we're like, don't be asking us about FDA approved. I know that you didn't, what did you see if your McDonald's cheeseburger was FDA approved? Or we're like, okay, I look at you right now and I know you've been eating things that are not FDA approved, right? That's the stuff that's going on in our mind. Maybe it's not going on in your mind. Maybe it only goes on in my mind and I'm a really bad person. Anyway, but that stuff's going through my mind. You guys are probably like, oh, bless your heart. I just love you. You're so sweet. And I'm like, did you check the cheeseburger that I know you ate? Anyway, but they're saying it's not FDA approved. And so that's not a lash out. They're saying I researched and it's not FDA approved. So those statements have to be overcome. So you've got to take a step back and you've got to relate to what they're saying and where they're at, because your job is to communicate direct facts to them. So what you want to do is you want to relate to them. Now, I'm going to use a statement only as a basis. I don't really want you to say these words. We're going to think of different ways to say these words over some of these objections. But basically, you have to relate to that person. So you want to say, feel, felt, found. Or you're thinking, feel, felt, found. So when that person says, shakes are not real food, they don't fill me up, or I've never had a shake that fills me up, or it doesn't look like real food, you want to meet them where they're at. Don't feel defensive. Just think that's really a question. They're really questioning, and I've got to answer that question. Do shakes, why do isogenic shakes fill us up? So I know how you feel. And that's how I felt too, because I had never had a shake that had worked for me. But what I found was, when I started using the product, it was amazing. So you take a step back and you're going to relate to them. So I might not say feel, felt, found. I'm going to use feel, felt, found, but I'm going to relate to them. I do know how they feel. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel. That's what I thought, because I used to eat shakes and then I'd go eat a couple of Twinkies too, but this time it actually filled me up. I absolutely love it. So there was no defense. I related to them and I overcame that objection. So I overcame that. So what about it's not FDA approved? I totally know what you mean. Sometimes that kind of scares me too, because I never want to put anything into my body that could be dangerous in any way. So I know how you feel about that. But through research, what I found is that literally our proteins come from New Zealand and the standard's so much higher than the US that it far outreaches anything that the US could offer. And we are FDA compliant. So you're relating to them. What about, well, you know, I read the articles that said that the cleanse just rips out all of the good bacteria, and it's also a diuretic. Oh my goodness, I totally can relate to that, because when I was researching, I read some articles that really worried me. But after spending time with so many doctors and doing my own research, what I found was everything that we have is so natural and amazing. So you guys are just relating. I know how you feel. That's how I felt. But what I found was, so you're really just taking a step back, you're relating to them, and you're recommunicating properly in the correct way. So that's really how you're overcoming the objections. I think what happens so many times is they say it and we get scared to come back, or we fumble over our words, but you've got to get so resolved in what we have is awesome and be free to go back and communicate it. It would be just like if my husband said, I read these running shoes don't hold up very well on trails. If the clerk was like, oh, he thinks the running shoes don't hold up well on the trails, and the clerk just like lets it go. Well, my husband's asking a question, so he has to say, oh, I know, I read that article too, but really what the case is this. So I hope that's kind of making sense. Now, in following up in overcoming objections, the other thing that you want to do is you really want to get to the root of the problem. So you want to find out what the real objection is, because what you'll find is people will begin to object in all these different directions, but you really want to find out what is holding them back from actually making the purchase. So sometimes they'll say things like, well, I feel like I need to do a little bit more research. I want to do some independent research. And so you may want to say to them, I totally know how you feel. That's exactly how I felt. I wanted to research, but let me ask you, what are you looking for when you're looking for it? So maybe they're saying, well, I just want to make sure that the sugars are healthy. Then you're going to say, okay, so my question is, I'm going to give you some information about how the sugars are healthy. Is there any other information or anything else that would hold you back from making a decision to do it? And so everything that they're going to tell you they're looking at, you want to say, okay, well, is there anything else that would hold you back? So maybe they say something like, well, I'm really worried that the shakes won't fill me up and I'll still be hungry. I know how you feel. That's exactly how I felt. But let me ask you, Tom, if the shakes made you feel totally full and they work for you, is there anything else that would keep you from making a decision to do it? And so you're asking those questions so that you can get down to the root of it. So many times it's going to come down to money, or so many times it's going to come down to that they are afraid that they're going to start another program and not stick with it. And so you want to get down to the root of what is really holding them back, so that you can overcome that objection. Now, with all of that being said, I want to rewind one more time, and I want to go back to the initial presentation. And I think that it is so important that as we're talking about overcoming objections tonight, that we rewind and we look at this. Because if you're spending an adequate amount of time during that presentation already overcoming most of the objections, it's going to cut down on this work tremendously. Because if you forget to say during the objection, if you forget to cover pricing during the presentation, such as, I was really worried about the price, but what I found was I actually saved money. Or this is the most convenient product I've ever used, and I actually was able to cut my budget expense. And so if you are overcoming those things during the presentation, then they're not going to come back and object to it. And it's going to be a lot smoother close. So that's why it's so important that you can't rush through that. I was thinking about that tonight. I was doing a call with, I can't remember who it was with somebody's person. I can't remember. And with Angel's person. And and before I started the call, I literally, my life has been a little crazy today, but I literally sat down, I took a deep breath, and I thought, I have to bring my very best to this presentation because I really need my inflection to be strong. I need my energy to be strong, and I need to make sure that during this presentation, I'm overcoming every objection that they could possibly have so that it makes her close so much easier for her. And so most of your battle is won during an intentional presentation. It's why I'm not impressed whenever an associate says, yeah, I was in the grocery store giving the presentation, driving my car. I'm not impressed because I don't care. I would rather see you in the moment for 10 minutes giving it the best that you got and overcoming those objections than to be all over the map and then to have to go back and do tons and tons of follow-up. So a ton of overcoming the objection should happen during the presentation, and then what is left, you're going to remember whatever they're saying to you, even as it comes out as a statement, is really a question, or we didn't cover this, I didn't go into this, I want to go into this a little bit more, or is they need validation. So I have a girl right now today that's asking me a lot of science questions, extreme science questions. And I know that really what she's looking for is validation. She's just wanting me to say, wow, you're an amazing researcher. You're so knowledgeable. Thank you for bringing that knowledge to me. And sometimes we feel like what they're doing is trying to one-up us, when a lot of times it's just, if you have a real sciencey person, and they're telling you the stuff, they need validation. So in a way, they're trying to validate the company by, or validate, they're wanting to know, do you believe what they believe? And they're looking for that validation. And sometimes when we're presenting, that can be a little bit offensive to us, or it can make us feel like they're questioning us, but when in all reality, they're looking for their own validation where you're like, yes, I agree with you. And so that type of thing. And so that's really what I have for overcoming objections. So I want to see if you guys have questions. Just when I was going over this, just let me know, does anyone have questions about this at all? Okay, good deal. Well, thank you guys so much for getting on. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about what to do with the new associates, how to train your new associate. And then on Thursday, we have Dr. Bruce's presentation. Our contest, although our last training actually will be tomorrow. I'm going to put a couple more live videos up, or a couple more YouTube videos up on here just to fill in a few gaps that I think are missing. But then we'll have Dr. Bruce's presentation on Thursday. However, you have until Sunday at 11 p.m. to complete your 25 and 10 to win those prizes. So you do have a little bit longer. You have until the very end of the week to actually complete that. Don't forget to let us know where you're at. Don't forget to rock your number. Remember, we're having a non-emotional 10 days. I want you to rock where you're at. If you did one amazing call, I want to know that you did the one amazing call. Like, don't hold back. Like, rock what you've done. So I want to see that up on the wall. You guys have an amazing, amazing Tuesday night and Wednesday, and we'll be back tomorrow night, and we're going to talk about what to do with your new team members. So bye, you guys. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.